So let's talk about language learning.
Okay.
You decide you're finally going to do it. You're going to learn a new language. You uh, you download the app. Maybe you buy the textbook.
Right. You're full of motivation.
Exactly. And then you open it up, and it's just a wall.
Uh-huh.
A wall of sounds and spelling that makes absolutely no sense. Your brain just goes blank.
It's the 0 point. That's what we
Yeah.
call it. The Great Wall of where on earth do I even begin?
No.
And I mean, we've all been there.
Yeah.
And our source material today just, it captures that feeling perfectly. This leap from knowing, very, very few words to actually being able to function, to speak.
And that is our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We've gone through these incredible personal accounts from 2 learners who documented everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we've pulled out the practical blueprint, the actual step-by-step strategies, the mindset shifts, all the little psychological tricks they use to get started.
It's really a roadmap for anyone standing at that 0 point.
Yeah, and I think we have to start by just acknowledging the fear, that feeling of being totally and completely lost.
Or scared, as one of them put it. It's a genuine fear. The sounds feel alien, and you have this voice in your head saying, I can never do this.
But the shift, the real first step,
Mm.
is changing that perspective.
Right. One of our sources said you have to see it not as a scary wall, but as the start of a new adventure.
A tough adventure, maybe.
A very tough adventure, sure, but one we can actually map out.
So let's do that. Let's jump into the very first phase, the foundational input. How do you even begin to feed your brain a new language when it's starting from absolute 0?
Well, what's fascinating is that our 2 learners took really different paths right at the beginning.
Okay.
For one of them, the immediate first step was purely sonic. It was all about sound. They just started listening, a lot of listening.
To what? Like news broadcasts?
No, nothing that complex. They used English songs, mostly pop and rock music.
Interesting. But I have to ask, if you don't understand any of the words, how is that actually helpful? Isn't it just background noise at that point?
That is such a good question because it seems counterintuitive, but the key at that initial stage isn't about vocabulary, not at all.
So what is it about?
It's about prosody, the rhythm, the melody of the language. By listening to music and even just, singing along with a la, they were training their brain
Training it for what?
to recognize the patterns, the musicality that's inherent in English. You're basically preparing your mouth and your ears for the shapes of the sounds before your brain gets all bogged down with grammar and vocabulary.
That's a fascinating way to think about it. You're setting the rhythm first.
Exactly. Now, the other learner, totally different approach, much
Yeah.
more organized, very structured.
Sure.
They started with a small physical notebook.
Old school. I like it.
Very. And this is perfect for someone who's maybe more of a tactile or a visual learner. They would literally write down every single new English word they came across.
And we're talking super basic words here.
The most basic. Building blocks. Hello, apple house. Things like that. But, and this is the critical part, they practice saying each word out loud as they wrote it.
Ah, so you're making a connection.
You're making it real.
Yeah.
You move the word from being just some abstract symbol on a page into a physical, tangible sound that you yourself can actually produce.
So I have 2 totally different starting points. One is just about absorbing sound. The other is about meticulously recording and speaking.
Yeah.
For someone listening right now thinking, which one am I? How do you choose?
I think you just have to look at your own personality, your comfort level. If the idea of organizing a notebook makes you anxious and you'd rather just, immerse yourself in a feeling, start with the music.
And if you need that structure to feel like you're making progress.
Grab the notebook. The beautiful thing is that both paths actually converge pretty quickly. Once you have a few sounds or few words under your belt, the next step for both of them was the same.
Which was graduating to new media.
Exactly. They both moved on to simple videos and cartoons.
My cartoons specifically.
Because they provide what they called very clear, slow English. The language is simple, the plots are straightforward, and most importantly, you have visuals.
The visuals give you context.
They give you so much context.
Yeah.
And language learning theory, this is what we call comprehensible input. The language is just a little bit above your current level, but the pictures fill in the gaps so you don't get frustrated and give up.
But it wasn't just what they watched, it was how they watched it.
Yes.
They had this very specific strategy, this two-step watch. This is the real nugget of insight here, I think.
This is a powerful cognitive trick. It's so smart. So they didn't just turn on the TV and put on subtitles.
No,
The first time they watched an episode, it was without any subtitles at all.
just raw sound.
Just sound and pictures, forcing their brain to try to make connections, to really listen, to get the sound, as they put it.
Rampus.
Only then would they do the second watch. And on that second viewing, they turn on the English subtitles.
So you connect the sound pattern you just heard to the actual written word.
Precisely. It's an active process. It blocks your brain's lazy desire to just ignore the sound and read the text at the bottom of the screen.
That sounds incredibly disciplined, though. I mean, if I'm already feeling overwhelmed, isn't watching the same thing twice just going to double my frustration? You have to wonder about the risk of burnout.
That's a really fair challenge, and they address that. The key is that you have to avoid complex media at the start. They specifically warned that jumping straight into a fast-paced movie is, in their words, too fast.
So you're setting yourself up for failure.
Instant failure. The discipline of the two-step watch only works because the content itself, a 5-minute cartoon, is simple and short. The goal is to get a quick, satisfying win.
Okay, that makes sense. From there, they move to reading.
Right. Simple stories, children's books. Again, they stress that the pictures were key.
And short sentences.
Very short sentences. It prevents that feeling of being overwhelmed. And you get this little dopamine hit every time you finish a page. It builds a crucial motivational loop. That feeling of, wow, I can do this. I just read a whole page in English.
So the input tank is getting full. You've got sounds, basic words, simple sentence structures floating around in your head.
The tank is full.
But eventually you realize all that input is kind of useless until you start pushing it out. And that's where most people just hit a brick wall, the speaking hurdle.
This is the moment of maximum panic for almost every learner, that feeling. Your heart starts beating fast, you just freeze up.
Your brain just stops.
It stops working entirely. You know the word, but it's just gone.
I remember that feeling so vividly, that paralysis. One of the learners we looked at, they described their first attempt to speak in a classroom.
A complete freeze up.
Total freeze. Couldn't say a thing.
Oh.
But their breakthrough was managing to push out just one single word.
Hello.
Just hello.
Ooh.
And that tiny, tiny success was enough to just release all that tension.
It's such a great illustration that output doesn't need to be a perfect, complex sentence. It just needs to exist.
Just get something out.
The other learner took a more proactive approach. They used an online language exchange.
Which sounds terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying, they said. But it was also effective because they could control the stakes.
How so?
They kept the topics incredibly simple. Favorite colors, pets, talking about your family. There was nothing high stakes about it. No complicated debate.
And this brings us to what I think is the real insight here. Their analysis of failure, of
Yeah.
making mistakes.
Yes. They had this realization very early on that mistakes are how we learn. And, that sounds like a platitude, something you'd see on a poster.
Right.
But it's more than that. A mistake isn't a failure. It's a high-quality data point for your brain. It signals exactly where your understanding of a grammar rule or a pronunciation is just a little bit off.
But to be okay with making those mistakes, you need to feel safe.
That's the core of it, psychological safety. They both emphasized how important it was to have a kind partner, someone who made them feel safe to try.
Because without that safety net,
You'll just keep taking in information, but you'll never risk the output. You'll never speak. And they came to this fundamental conclusion. If you don't speak, you won't improve. It doesn't matter how big your vocabulary is.
so to build up that confidence, even when they were alone, they came up with these independent practice techniques.
Yeah, these are really practical.
One was pure repetition, hearing a common phrase like, nice to meet you, and just saying it over and over.
This is a form of shadowing and also chunking. You're taking these useful common phrases and moving them from your slow-thinking brain into your fast, automated motor cortex.
You're building muscle memory.
You are. You start thinking about the individual words, nice, to, meet, you, and you start treating the entire phrase as one single usable unit, a chunk.
And they applied that same idea to building their own sentences, right?
Yeah.
Just very gradually.
Very gradually. I like apples. My name is Johnny. Super basic, systematic construction. You're just forcing the output no matter how simple.
But the best technique, the one they both called their secret, was talking to themselves.
Specifically, in the shower or in the car. This private, safe space.
Why there?
Because it completely eliminates all external pressure. You can make 1,000 mistakes. You can sound ridiculous. You can experiment. No one is listening.
I have to admit, I discovered this method myself, talking to myself in the shower.
Did it work?
It did, although I quickly realized my active vocabulary was about 90% shampoo ingredients and simple complaints about the water temperature. But still.
But it works. It absolutely works. And it connects to that other practical tip, the one for the visual learners.
Micro-immersion.
Yes, labeling things around the house, a sticky note on the door, one on the chair, one on the faucet.
So you're constantly seeing the English words in a real-world necessary context.
It keeps the language visible and present.
Okay, so we've covered input, we've covered output. Now we have to talk about the big, scary monster for every single language learner.
Ah, yes. Grammar.
Grammar.
It can seem so intimidating. Just this towering wall of incomprehensible rules.
But the consensus from our sources was actually pretty refreshing.
It really was. The advice was, focus on understanding and being understood first. Just communicate.
The grammar can come later.
It can come a little later once you're actually functional. You don't need to be perfect at the start.
And their approach to learning it wasn't about memorizing charts, which, let's be honest, often fails the minute you're in a real conversation.
Right, because your brain is too busy trying to remember the rule to actually form the sentence.
So what do they do instead?
It was all learning by pattern recognition. They would just notice things. While reading those simple stories, they'd start to see how sentences were built.
They were kind of reverse engineering the language.
Intuitively, yes. It's a method that avoids that cognitive overload you get from formal schooling. They started with the most basic patterns. For instance, one learner realized they didn't need to memorize complex rules about the future tense.
Okay.
They just noticed that whenever someone talked about the future, the sentence almost always used the word will, followed by a simple verb.
So that just became their rule?
That became their functional rule for months. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. It allowed them to communicate.
That is a perfect, actionable example of picking up patterns instead of just memorizing rules. It lets your brain build a real intuition for the language.
Precisely. And they took it one step at a time. They'd focus on mastering, say, the present simple tense before they even thought about looking at the past tense. No trying to swallow the whole textbook in one gulp.
And all of that work, the listening, the shadowing, the talking to yourself, the pattern spotting, it all leads to these incredible breakthrough moments.
The click moments.
Yes, the moments that really motivate you to keep going when you hit that intermediate plateau.
For one of our learners, the click happened while he was watching a simple sitcom.
Without subtitles.
Without subtitles. And he suddenly realized he wasn't just understanding individual words. He was understanding like 70 to 80% of the whole conversation.
And the ultimate proof.
He was laughing at the jokes.
See, laughing at the jokes is huge. That means you've moved past simple comprehension and into cultural context.
It's a massive shift. For the other learner, the click was a little simpler, but just as profound. It was being able to have a short, simple conversation with a native speaker.
Yeah.
And not feel completely lost.
Oh, that feeling is everything. Just being able to communicate an idea, even a simple one, and have the other person understand you.
It's incredibly rewarding. It's the proof that all that time and effort is actually paying off.
But those click moments aren't constant, are they?
No, not at all. Which brings us to our final section, dealing with the inevitable downside of any marathon effort, facing frustration and building resilience.
Right, because there are practical hurdles that can feel totally insurmountable at first. A classic one they mention was a specific pronunciation challenge.
The dreaded the sound.
The sound, which just doesn't exist in so many other languages.
And the solution wasn't just to mindlessly repeat it. It was very tactical. They watched instructional videos that actually showed the mechanics of it.
Like where to put your tongue.
Exactly. The pung placement, the breath control. It really highlights that pronunciation is a physical motor skill. It's not just in your head. It takes time and a lot of practice.
But the practical stuff might be easier than the emotional challenges. The frustration wall. That feeling of I'm not learning fast enough. That's the psychological barrier that makes so many people just quit.
And they had a coping mechanism for this that was, well, it was remarkably simple and effective.
Just take a break.
Take a small strategic break. If you're feeling burned out on English, okay. Go listen to music in your native language for half an hour.
Reset your brain.
Reset your emotional state. And then come back to English with fresh eyes. It's like strategic damage control for your motivation.
It's also recognizing that your brain needs that downtime. It needs time to consolidate everything it just learned.
Which brings us to the absolute core lesson of this entire process. Learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint.
And that means consistency is everything.
Paramount. A little bit every day is better than a lot once a week.
20 minutes a day beats a 4-hour cram session on Sunday.
Every time. That daily practice is what builds the muscle memory and prevents the kind of information overload that just leads to burnout.
So when you put it all together, the listening, the chunking, the simple videos, the self-talk, the patience, it's a path that really prioritizes one thing over all else.
Communication over perfection.
Exactly. So if we had to synthesize everything we've extracted today, we had to give the 2 biggest takeaways for someone starting from zero, what are they?
Number 1, I think, is do not be afraid to make mistakes. In fact, you have to embrace them.
See them as data points.
High-quality data that tells you exactly what you need to adjust next.
And what's number 2?
Find what you genuinely enjoy. If you love cartoons, use cartoons. If you love music, use music. Make the process fun.
Because consistency naturally follows enjoyment.
It does. You won't have to force yourself to do it.
And we want you to celebrate every single little victory along the way. Understanding a new word, forming a new sentence without freezing.
Every single step counts.
That patience,
Yeah.
that consistency. That's what gets you from 0 words to having a real conversation.
So keep practicing, keep celebrating those small wins, and just keep moving forward.
And as we close out this deep dive, let's build on that idea of personalized practice, of micro-immersion.
Okay.
We talked about labeling the obvious things, right? The door, the chair. But this whole process is about finding unique ways to integrate the language into your life. So here's a final thought for you. Find one single, non-obvious object in your home. Not the table, not the window, something unique to you. What's one object you could label tomorrow that would force you to use that English word in a new and interesting way?
I like that. Find that word, stick a note on it, and make it part of your new adventure. Thank you for diving deep with us today.
We'll catch you next time. Keep learning.